Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good afternoon. Before you begin deliberations in the matter presently before this court, I am required to provide you with the instructions concerning the law, your responsibilities, and apparently the cultural significance of a man who somehow looks exactly the same in every decade since 1997. Now, first things first. The defendant, Mr. Matt Damon, entered these proceedings cloaked in the presumption of innocence. That means he is innocent unless and until the prosecution proves guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Not beyond a shadow of a doubt, but beyond a reasonable doubt. This is a courtroom, not the comment section under a sports podcast clip. You are to consider only the evidence admitted during trial. Not rumors, not gossip, not memes, not whatever your uncle posted on social media claiming how Matt Damon personally caused the downfall of cable television by appearing in too many crypto commercials. That is not evidence, even if your uncle typed it in all caps. Fame does not make a person guilty, and it certainly does not make them innocent. Now, throughout this trial, you heard testimony concerning the defendant's activities, statements, and suspiciously confident Boston accent. You may consider those matters carefully. However, you must not allow yourselves to be swayed by celebrity status. Several witnesses referenced the motion picture known as Good Will Hunting. While the court acknowledges that How Do You Like Them Apples remains objectively iconic, you are instructed not to substitute movie quotes for legal analysis. A juror may not vote not guilty simply because they enjoyed a screenplay co-written by the defendant and his funny friend. The fact that Mr. Damon portrayed a super spy capable of defeating 6 trained operatives with a rolled-up magazine does not establish that he committed the acts alleged in this courtroom, though I will admit from a purely judicial standpoint, it does make him seem difficult to arrest. Members of the jury, during deliberations you are to conduct yourselves respectfully. Listen to one another and share your thoughts openly and honestly. If another juror disagrees with you, do not immediately assume they are wrong. They may simply interpret evidence differently. Or they may still be emotionally affected by Interstellar. Frankly, we all are. He was surprisingly good in that film at the end. You should appoint a foreperson, someone organized, level-headed, and ideally capable of saying the phrase, "Let's focus on the evidence," at least 12 times per hour. The foreperson will guide discussions and notify the court when you have reached a verdict or when someone starts ranking Matt Damon movies instead of discussing the case. That happened once already during our jury selection, and this court will not tolerate another 20-minute argument about whether The Martian is just Castaway in space. Certain exhibits introduced during the trial included photographs, financial records, emails, and one deeply unnecessary slideshow labeled Matt Damon Hot or Not. You are free to evaluate the credibility and weight of all evidence presented. Some evidence may seem persuasive, some may seem ridiculous. That is the nature of trials. You are also instructed not to conduct outside research. Do not search the internet. Do not stream movies for context while deliberating evidence inside this courtroom. Don't ask smart speakers whether Matt Damon has ever appeared guilty. The answer to that question is irrelevant and probably biased anyway. During testimony, you heard conflicting accounts from expert witnesses. One expert claimed the defendant displayed charismatic guilt, another described him as aggressively approachable. It is up to you to determine credibility. You should consider the witness's demeanor, consistency, opportunity to observe events, and whether they appear to have rehearsed their testimony in front of a bathroom mirror. Now I want to address an important part. Sympathy and prejudice have no place in your deliberations. You may not decide this case based on emotion. Not because Matt Damon was funny in Ocean's 11, not because he rescued private soldiers, solved math problems, stranded himself on Mars, or bought a zoo. Frankly, this man has lived at least 40 fictional lives, and none of them are relevant here. The law requires fairness. As jurors, you represent the conscience of the community, which sounds dramatic because it is. Your verdict must be unanimous. All jurors must agree on the verdict together. This is not like picking a restaurant with friends where everyone eventually settles on tacos because Chad won't stop complaining. You must carefully deliberate until you reach a conclusion based solely on the evidence and the law. If, after thoughtful consideration, the prosecution has failed to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, then your duty is to return a verdict of not guilty. Even if you suspect wrongdoing, even if you think Matt Damon probably knows at least 3 government secrets, suspicion is not proof. On the other hand, if the evidence convinces you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed the acts charged, then your duty is to return a verdict of guilty without fear, favor, or concern about whether late-night talk shows will make jokes about it on television. Finally, members of the jury, remember this. Justice is not about popularity, box office numbers, or Rotten Tomato scores. Justice is about facts, reason, and the rule of law. May wisdom guide your discussions. May reason shape your verdict. I have faith in the system right here.